Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Joining us now is Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel. He's a former Obama White House health policy advisor. He's the vice provost of global initiatives at the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Emanuel, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for making time tonight.
Nice to be back.
So, first of all, tell me if I got any of that wrong, or if it seems like I'm looking at any of this backwards. I would be very happy to have you correct me on any of that stuff.
I would just emphasize two important points. One is there's a lot of unknowns here. We really, there's a brand new virus. We don't know how it's spreading. We do know that it spreads and that it has a sort of between 2 and 3 people get it from each infected person. We really don't know its death rate because we don't have enough cases. But I think, in general, you got the story right. And I think we do need, as you said, a coordinated, science-based response to this problem, and we need to be very well prepared. God willing, it won't be a big problem. But as we say in medicine, you prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
In terms of knowing the number of cases, I'm finding that the testing situation to be increasingly hard to get my arms around. I mean, how is it that South Korea has tested tens of thousands of people, and we've apparently tested less than 450? It would seem like testing is an important part of trying to get a grasp on the scale of the problem and what needs to be done. How come we can't scale up our testing?
Well, one of the problems is that every hospital or public health community has to go back to the CDC to get a test kit. That seems like a mistake, especially now that we know there's community passage of this and many asymptomatic people are passing it. So we have to have a high index of suspicion right from the start, even if someone's asymptomatic. And I think you're right. We need to see tens of thousands of tests being done in this country, if anything, to just prevent further spread. We're not going to contain this. It probably, as the California case suggests, has broken out. But we do need mitigating responses to this problem and to try to reduce or isolate people who do test positive.
What do you think we should expect in terms of a time frame for that kind of scaling up that you're talking about? If that is key to trying to figure out how to mitigate the impact of this sort of uncontainable virus in terms of its spread, how fast could we be at the level where we've got 10,000 kits, tens of thousands of kits out there, and they can do it in all the states where they've got prevalence?
Well, I mean, if you had a whirlwind personality who was running this, that's, one step that they would take. Another step is getting all the state health officials together and talking about them and making sure everyone knows what the federal government is doing and what the states are doing and ensuring that there's close collaboration. You would make sure that we have enough personal protective equipment, the PPE, out there in all the hospitals and throughout the country. You would make sure that our drug supply is secure, since so much of the raw materials come from China and the generics come from China, and you have to get on that. I mean, there's a very long list that you need to do. I'd say the other thing we need to prepare for, and China made quite clear that it could threaten us, hopefully it won't, is surge in the hospitals. If a lot of people get infected, we may begin to overwhelm our hospitals. We have less than 1 million beds in the United States in all hospitals. What's the surge capacity? How are we going to respond if we have a large number of people? We still have people who have other conditions, whether it's cancer or need surgery. So we have to be able to handle that surge, and that needs a plan as well. And, taking care of the United States is only so good. We have to make sure that the world has an adequate response, too. So we need to partner with the WHO and other organizations in addressing this. So there's a list which is where you would start if you were taking over this and really pushing it forward.
Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, Senior White House Health Policy Advisor in the Obama administration, now Vice Provost at UPenn. Sir, thanks for your time. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Hope that was helpful.
It is helpful. It's a good list. I'm taking notes. I think we all are. I wish I had more confidence that at the White House they were also taking notes, writing this stuff down. Maybe we'll send them a transcript.
It is Friday, the 28th of February of 2020. And you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all night hawks in the diner of life. Well, the French 77s are all mixed, shaken, poured, and ready for your imbibing pleasures. So if you are in either a virtual or analog mood, please do. But be careful. Though the French 77 be the most balanced cocktail in the history of cocktails, it is a very potent one. That's why they call it a potent spirit. So I always suggest, imbibe with friends. That way, when you tipple and topple, you'll be tippling and toppling into each other. And that way, maybe you may get to where you need to go, which is usually just where you're pinned to. So do take care. Looks like the coronavirus is reaching pandemic proportions. No one's really calling it that yet, except for, the ones who are being muzzled. What is up with that? Putting Mike Pence in charge, and then you bring in Kudlow and Mnuchin. That's one way to tackle a pandemic. I mean, I got to tell you, though, Azar, Pence, Kudlow, and Mnuchin do know business. They know their business, but they don't know anything about medicine. Not one bit. So that's who you're going to be putting in. If you've gutted the pandemic response team in the CDC because, it just costs too much money. You need that money for your wall, or maybe just to line your own pockets. I'm still not convinced that this money that's being saved by gutting for instance, the pandemic response team is going into the Treasury. Come on. This guy doesn't do anything unless it benefits him directly, personally, and right now. So if you're going to have gutted that response team, what better way than to bring in a bunch of business guys to make sure that these stupid egghead scientists don't go out there and mess up the market? Don't you know that these market drops are affecting Trump's value? His stocks are taking a dump, and that cannot happen, no matter how many thousands and thousands of people are going to die. My God. Also, you got to wrap your head around this, all right? When they say that the coronavirus infection rate has moved from like 1.3 to 2, let's be clear what that means. It's not like 1%, which is bad enough. Think about how many millions of people are represented by 1.3%. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the amount of people who get infected and die from one person infecting them. So they say 2, but, I've seen numbers as high as 4. One person infecting and killing 4 other people. That's a big number. 2 is a big number. One person kills 2. Add that up. That's not a little number. Jeez. But it sounds little, so don't worry. And leave it to Azar to give us, the kind of calming that we need. Oh, apparently they cannot guarantee that the coronavirus will be affordable because Azar, being a big farmer lobbyist, pretty much installed an HHS, knows a captured market and a captive market. But in this case, it's not just a captive market, it is a captured market. And he knows that captured market when he sees it. I was going to get it out one way or another, and I did. So it looks like those guys have been all rubbing their hands in glee. They're not washing their hands. They're rubbing their hands in glee over all the money they're going to be making because people have nowhere else to go. All right. What's up with Bolton decimating the CDC too? Does it really go to? I was only making a joke about property being more valuable than when delivered vacant to a hostile foreign power. I was kind of making a joke. Now I know Bolton is like pretty much anti-Russian there, but still, what's up with that? You're gonna decimate the program that saves lives. If you're not saving lives, I think you're delivering the property vacant. I suppose in the disclosure statement, if they have one, they should note that a bunch of people did die, and knowing the Russians in Chernobyl, they'll take the proper measures now, won't they? Our governor here, Kate Brown, issued subpoenas to the GOP repugs, because that's redundant. GOP and repug pretty much go hand in hand, but I had to get the repug in there. The repugs have hightailed it out of the Capitol. Once again, they did this twice last year, and then threatened armed insurrection and cop killings. I don't know how they're not in jail, but apparently if you're a repug Trump bro with a gun, you can say anything you want. You determine what is polite conversation, and everybody pretty much kowtows to you, as evidenced by the fact that these idiots are doing it again. So last year, Kate did threaten to bring them back. A bunch of them hightailed it to Idaho. Yeah, okay, just so you know. Probably near Moscow. I wonder if there's any symbolism to that. Regardless, Kate Brown last year threatened that she would send the state police, thus the threats of the cop killings. Well, she has issued subpoenas today to bring these people back. Now, I don't know if there's marshals going to be issuing these, court bailiffs, the sheriffs. Maybe. We'll see. But once again, why is this? Because Republicans are in a minority, and the only thing they know how to do is to gum up the works. They are not about legislation. They are about delivering property vacant because it's more valuable when delivered vacant to a hostile foreign power. Of course, it's only hostile to us. They don't think they're delivering property vacant to a hostile foreign power. They think they're friends. They're willing to pay overpriced to launder their rubles. I guess at some point you don't even need to launder the rubles anymore. Money laundering is not a crime. That can't be an impeachable offense. Who ever heard of that? Obstructing the cops from doing their work. Who ever heard of that being a crime? Boy, we live in a topsy-turvy world, and I want to know, by what standard do we determine the truth? I've been getting that question over and over and over by this bigot, heretic, anti-abortionist with a bullhorn in front of Planned Parenthood. How do you like them consonants? And, you don't discuss liturgy and scripture with, a meth head heretic. You don't. Yeah, I've been getting this constant refrain. By what standard are you able to judge? Because I call him a bigot heretic, and God hates bigot heretics. It just seems obvious, doesn't it? Of course, you ask him, by what standard are you going by to be a bigot heretic, you stupid bigot heretic? So I get this question over and over and over. I mean, it's so obvious. I mean, we only learned it. Well, granted, I passed catechism at a much more accelerated rate than normal because it was in first grade, and usually it's like third or more when you get through catechism and all of that. But, nonetheless, I learned it in first grade. And by what standard are people judged? Well, it's usually by your actions. You can have thoughts. They may be good or bad. But if your actions are bad, that's pretty visible even to God. And I don't know why you need to have actions visible to God, because I think God's idea of thoughts would be action too. But let's not get into the physics of all of that. Oh my God. And I don't mean that as a pun either. So yeah, we are judged by our actions. That's the standard in which to judge. Capiche? In fact, I'm pretty sure it's in the Bible. Yeah, don't match scripture either. Boy, they're pretty long on all the fires of, or lake of fire. Yeah, lake of fire. They love that. So much for a loving God now, isn't it? What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Speaking of a loving God, a long list of tasks await the would-be managers of the coronavirus outbreak. I do remember having this spiritual dissonance occur pretty much around first grade, maybe earlier, when I was trying to figure out how it was that a loving God would allow, a little kid to stub their toe. That hurts. What's loving about that? Or a bee sting. What kind of God would use a bee sting to not punish, but just terrorize, torture a little kid? I was just a little kid thinking, what kind of loving God does that? Is there a loving God? I don't know if I want that kind of love. Too tough for me. Well, they do have a long list of tasks to attend to, because I have to surmise that maybe the business guys know how to balance ledgers. Yeah, we'll have so many bodies dead, we'll have to transport them here, and it'll take us, this much time, X plus Y equals transporting dead bodies to a dump. How long will that take? I think they're pretty good at that. Saving lives? I don't think so. On the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe, West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Moscow Mitch McConnell has blocked the gun background checks bill for a full year. You think he was good with Mary Garland? Look what he's doing with this bill. Pretty good. An HHS whistleblower complaint alleges that federal workers are not properly trained or equipped to help coronavirus patients, and in fact, they're spreading it. This is what you would expect when you have a bunch of mobsters running this program, don't you think? I do. And Trump's border wall construction is destroying sacred sites. Dig up Arlington and put a wall in there and see how long that lasts. Really, let's do it. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Hong Kong police arrested media tycoon Jimmy Lai on illegal assembly charges. Talking to a group of people is now illegal in Hong Kong, as charged by the mainland. And New Zealand's Prime Minister says Australia's deportation policy is corrosive. Well, yeah, it's just like ours, only worse. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and she does so much more. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is our Patreon link. And if you could please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, your recurring contribution, monthly contribution, helps us pay our bills and so much more as well. And we have been doing this for going on 9 years now. And it is only because of your generosity that we have been able to fulfill our civic duty as Resistance Radio, as the founders intended all those almost an eon ago now. If you could afford a espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds our way once a month, we are able to stretch them on the quantum level beyond measure, which according to quantum mechanics you can't do because things only exist if you can measure them. Now, there's a contravailing argument that says that things exist if you can't measure them, but I like the first one because that was in the Dancing Mooley Masters. Okay, look that one up. Anyway, thank you for your generosity, and we would truly be unable to do this without you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that and so much more as well. Thank you, Tom. I take care of at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary about 10 minutes before showtime and get that out on social media. So check that out. And if you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so at Cookbook West. And pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever fine podcasts can be found. Mixed in with all the rest of us, because we're all there. Mixed in. All right, let's take gander. Who uses that kind of language anymore? How dare they? Let us take a gander at this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And it comes our way out of the American Independent by Emily Singer. Exactly 1 year ago, the House passed H.R. 8. That was the 8th bill of the year, by the way. A gun safety bill that would mandate universal background checks for gun sales. However, the legislation is still languishing in the Senate. Oh, it's in the graveyard. Thanks to Senator Mitch McConnell's refusal to bring it up for a vote. Can we just dispense with the majority leader or Senate? Just call him Moscow Mitch. Come on. Now, that was a move House Speaker Nancy Pelosi called him out for yesterday, Thursday, at her weekly news conference. It was 1 year ago today that we passed H.R. 8 and sent it over to the Senate. H.R. 8 is our legislation, as you know, for common sense background checks. And it's very sad that the Grim Reaper has decided more people will die because he is the Grim Reaper, Pelosi said, referring to the nickname McConnell has given himself for his refusal to pass any of the House's bills. Moscow Mitch Grim Reaper. I think that flows off the tongue rather quite well. Let's use it. The passage of H.R. 8 was a historic move by the House, which had not passed a gun safety bill for, count them, 25 years. 2 decades plus 5 years. The bill would require a background check for every firearm purchased. Oh, the horror! Currently, only guns purchased from licensed dealers require background checks, a loophole gun safety advocates have been fighting to close. You know, go to a gun show, don't sell it at the gun show, sell it out of the trunk of your car. No one knows. No one cares. Yeah, we care. And despite the fact that the vast majority of Americans support this kind of legislation, McConnell has sat on the bill thwarting its passage. Since the bill's passage, thousands of people have died from gun violence. According to the Gun Violence Archive, 6,155 people have died from gun violence less than 2 months into 2020 this year. 6,155 people dead in just 2 months. At a press conference, Pelosi acknowledged that this background check bill wouldn't prevent every single gun death, but she said it's a good start. Here we are. 97% of the public support common sense background checks. Democrats, Republicans, gun owners, most of them have engaged in background checks, Pelosi said. This would only be a simple matter of expanding them to sales on the internet and at gun shows, so this is only an expansion of all that, and we would hope that we could save lives. Next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, is also out of the American Independent and brought to us by Melanie Schmitz. A senior health and human services official alleged in a whistleblower complaint that federal workers tasked with assisting potential COVID-19 patients did so without proper protective gear and did not receive adequate medical training until days after those patients arrived at government quarantine facilities. Some of the workers then departed into the general population, not knowing they had potentially been exposed to the disease. The complaint was first obtained by the Washington Post and the New York Times. It alleged that the workers were improperly deployed to 2 military bases in California and Texas, now being used as quarantine stations for Americans who were evacuated from Wuhan, China, amid the deadly coronavirus outbreak. The virus responsible for causing the COVID-19 disease. It also claimed workers were not properly trained or equipped to operate in a public health emergency situation. Well, you know that happens when you cut the pandemic response team budget and fire everybody that was in it. In this reporter's opinion, of course. According to the Post, appropriate steps were not taken to protect them, and staff were not trained in wearing personal protective equipment, even though they had face-to-face contact with returning passengers. The workers were not trained on safety protocols until 5 days after the patients arrived at the bases. As the Times noted, due to the lack of training, some of the exposed staff members moved freely around and off the bases with at least one person staying in a nearby hotel and leaving California on a commercial flight. The whistleblower, who oversees employees in the Administration for Children and Families, a unit within HHS, alleged that officials and staffers in the field quickly became concerned about the potential threat of infection to both workers and the public and relayed those concerns to the whistleblower's office. I soon began to field panic calls from my leadership team and deployed staff members expressing concerns with the lack of HHS communication and coordination, staff being sent into quarantine areas without personal protective equipment, training or experience in managing public health emergencies, safety protocols, and the potential danger to both themselves and the members of the public they came into contact with. She wrote. The whistleblower is a she, which means in this construct, Trump's getting rid of her as soon as he can find out who she is, and he knows who the whistleblower is. Approximately 14 staffers were deployed to March Air Force Base in Riverside County, while an additional 13 were sent to Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield. How many people are in the San Gabriel Valley? I wonder how many people are infected. That would be scary. The Administration for Children and Families typically dispatches staff in the wake of natural disasters and do not tend to health emergencies like the current coronavirus outbreak. The whistleblower said she was told in late January that the unit would be supporting repatriation of the evacuated Americans, according to her lawyer, and agreed with the deployment at the time because it appeared to be within the agency's scope. However, she later discovered the staffers had been dispatched without her knowledge by other senior officials at HHS. Oh, you mean political officials? According to the complaint, the whistleblower raised concerns about worker safety with other HHS officials, including those with Secretary Azar's office, and was reassigned shortly thereafter. Oh, they got rid of her as I said they would. News of the complaint comes hours after Azar faced questioning from lawmakers at a House Ways and Means Committee hearing. Earlier, Representative Jimmy Gomez appeared to reference the complaint directly, pressing Azar on the matter. To your knowledge, were any of the staff employees exposed to high-risk evacuees from China? Gomez asked. Azar responded, they should never have been, without appropriate protective gear. If you were anyone in quarantine, to maintain quarantine, that would be the case. And he added that he was not aware of any violation of quarantine or isolation protocols, which means he lied. This final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is brought to us by anonymous worker bees at the Associated Press. A Native American leader from Arizona grew emotional as he told a congressional committee about the pain members of his tribe feel about U.S. officials blasting through land they consider sacred to build part of Trump's wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. No one reveres our military veterans more than the Otham tribe. However, dynamiting these sacred sites and burial grounds is the same as bulldozing Arlington National Cemetery or any other cemetery, Tohono O'odham Nation Chair Ned Norris told lawmakers in Washington. His testimony came hours after the government carried out a new round of explosions near the southern border. As a group of invited journalists watched. Oh, everybody loves to watch an explosion, especially if you're exploding sacred sites. I don't know. What would happen if they exploded a building that had a church steeple on it to make way for, I don't know, free government handouts? How long would that last? We'll see. And that was near the southern border. Construction crews this month began blasting and bulldozing through hills to build a 30-foot steel wall 60 feet wide in Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument. Environmental groups are also decrying the work at the National Park System site that is named for its cactuses, shouldn't it be cacti, resembling organ pipes, and is largely untouched example of the Sonoran Desert habitat. The administration says archaeological monitors working with Customs and Border Protection and the Army Corps of Engineers found no sign of burial or sacred sites in the area. Department of Homeland Security Chad Wolf told Congress that he plans to travel soon to meet with the tribe to discuss their concerns. Well, you know, when you hire a bunch of lobbyists for the explosive munitions lobby, or, I don't know, the cement steel lobby, do you really think they're going to be experts in locating sacred burial sites? And even if they did, would they want anyone to know? My God, have you ever tried to develop property near a shell mound in the Bay Area? Yeah, they'll try to keep that under wraps before anyone finds out. The UN has designated the monument an International Biosphere Reserve. The Army Corps of Engineers said the Department of Defense awarded $891 million in contracts to Southwest Valley constructors in May to build the border wall on Organ Pipe and Cabeza Prieta National Wildlife Refuge. the fix was always in. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we are going to go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, Middle-Aged Woe. Although Downhill is billed as a comedy drama, it's actually more a drama with some light moments. A remake of the 2014 Swedish film Force Majeure, which won the jury prize at Cannes and made several best-of lists that year, Downhill stars Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Pete and Billy Stanton, who are on vacation at an Austrian ski resort with their 2 tween sons. We don't learn much about the Stantons' background other than the fact that Billy is an attorney, which is revealed only a ways into the film. We do know that the purpose of the trip is for the family to spend quality time together. However, early in the trip, the family barely escapes an avalanche, leading Billy to seriously start taking stock of their marriage. In the key scene, with snow flying, Pete flees the area, being careful to secure his phone rather than moving reflexively to protect his family. WTF, just happenstairs, then cut the room. Those who have been married for a while will recognize a marriage like the Stantons. It's not bad, but it seems something's missing. Part of that something just may be an excitement for living, which is explored vicariously when Pete's younger co-worker Zach and his girlfriend Rosie appear, gushing about their wide-open travel plans. It's both touching and cringeworthy to observe this couple. Both the Stantons and the audience know this exuberance is a moment in time. Rounding out the cast is an underused Miranda Otto as the free-spirited European of indeterminate origin who is clearly in yet another kind of relationship. Ferrell and Louis-Dreyfus do well here, but while Downhill's setup scene after the avalanche is positively intense and the cinematography worthy of the location, the rest of the film lacks focus and falls short of the original. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Suzanne Bard. Airplanes account for about 3% of the climate-altering carbon dioxide emissions we add to the atmosphere. But planes are warming the planet in another way.
So if you look up in the sky, you'll probably see at some point an aircraft, and behind that aircraft are white, fluffy streaks, and that's what we call a contrail.
Imperial College London engineer Mark Stetler. Contrails are made up of ice crystals that form when aircraft engines emit exhaust that hits the cold air. The ice crystals reflect incoming light from the sun back into space, which has a cooling effect on the atmosphere. But the contrails also stop heat coming up from the ground from escaping into space.
It's reflected back down towards the ground, and so that's a warming effect.
Stetler says on balance, contrails warm the atmosphere more than they cool it.
And that's primarily because the cooling effect due to reflecting of sunlight can only happen during the day when the sun's shining, whereas the warming effect due to trapping of outgoing heat happens all of the time.
Some contrails can form clouds that last for up to 18 hours. During that time, they spread out, trapping even more heat. This process allows contrails to warm the planet about as much as the carbon dioxide emissions from aircraft. But when Stetler and his team analyzed flight data they obtained of Japan airspace, they found that most contrail warming was caused by just 2% of flights, and most of those flights originated in the late afternoon, because as the sun goes down, cooling can no longer offset the warming.
And the warming effect persists throughout the evening and into the night.
But what if the contrails that contribute the most to warming could be eliminated? Such a change could be achieved if aircraft avoided flying in the thin layers of humidity where contrails form.
By changing the altitude only by a couple of thousand feet, either up or down, it would no longer form a contrail. And so what we found in the study was that by changing the altitude of less than 2% of flights, we could actually get rid of just under 60% of the warming effect due to contrails.
The study is in the journal Environmental Science and Technology. This improved understanding of how to manage contrails presents an opportunity for the aviation industry to reduce its global environmental impact. Think of it as a silver lining in those contrail clouds. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Suzanne Bard.
In 2012 in the United States, about 317,000 motor vehicle crashes involved a large truck. 26,000 truck drivers and their passengers were injured in these crashes, and about 700 died. Trucker safety requires an alert, buckled-up, experienced driver with a reliable vehicle and a strong employer safety program. Seatbelts are the most effective way to prevent an injury or death in a motor vehicle crash, but in 2013, 1 in 6 drivers of large trucks didn't use their seatbelts. Employers can help truck drivers stay safe by committing to driver safety programs at the highest level of leadership, establishing and enforcing driver safety policies, including requiring everyone in the truck to buckle up, and addressing factors that contribute to crashes, such as drowsy and distracted driving. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Four U.S. prosecutors quit Stone case after bosses step in to overrule them. That was the headline. Here's the story. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. Roger Stone, President Trump's longtime friend, was convicted in federal court last November of lying to investigators and witness tampering and obstructing the House Intelligence Committee investigation into Russia's interference with the 2016 presidential election. In February, after prosecutors filed papers recommending a 7 to 9 year prison sentence for Stone, Trump tweeted, "Cannot allow this miscarriage of justice." Then, the higher-ups in the DOJ intervened to withdraw the recommendation and recommend a much more lenient punishment, which caused the 4 career prosecutors to quit the case and 1 to quit the department altogether. Trump, who had claimed no involvement whatsoever, then effusively praised Attorney General William Barr for acting to help out his buddy, Roger Stone. At stake here is something far more important than a sentencing recommendation. The Department of Justice historically operates independently of presidential influence. Now the president and his attorney general are in lockstep, using the power of the Department of Justice for the benefit and protection of the president's friends and political allies. What this episode exposes is a crucial part of the edifice of checks and balances crumbling. That's stone cold scary. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1942. That was the day that Sue Cowan Williams filed a lawsuit for equal pay for black teachers in Little Rock, Arkansas. 86 black teachers worked in the city's segregated school system. They were all members of the Little Rock Classroom Teachers Association. In 1941, the teachers formed a salary adjustment committee to look into pay discrimination. What they found there was a wide gap between black and white salaries. The average white elementary school teacher made $526 a year, while the black teacher earned only $321. White high school teachers brought home $856 a year, while black teachers only made $567. Backed with this research, the committee presented a petition to the school board demanding an end to pay discrimination. The board tabled the petition, and that summer passed another round of unequal pay raises. The teachers then approached the NAACP and asked them to handle their case. Thurgood Marshall agreed to take up the lawsuit. Marshall would go on to become the first black U.S. Supreme Court justice. Sue Cowan-Williams, the head of the English department at Dunbar High School, was selected as the plaintiff for the case. The teachers lost their lawsuit and then won on appeal, but Williams paid a price for her involvement. The next school year, the school district did not renew her contract. She was finally rehired to teach at Dunbar a decade later. But first, the school's superintendent called Williams to ask her if she had, quote, learned her lesson. It was a lesson that many workers have learned, that there is often a high personal cost for standing up for justice on the job. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
I'm Mark Boulanger. The world is facing a potential pandemic with the spread of the deadly coronavirus. In this, the second of a two-part series, I talked to Fabrizio Barcellona about one of the ships affected by the virus. The ship, the Diamond Princess, had 3,700 travelers and crew on board when the virus was discovered. Mr. Barcellona is the head of the seafarer section of the International Transport Workers Federation. I asked him how the ITF and the Italian union, which represents the seafarers, helped the crew of the Diamond Princess.
In many ways. In general, we do many things, but this particular instance, we have a system of a shop steward on board or seafarers that have gone through cruise seminars where a number of subjects and they share their experience with the Armed Labor Convention, which is the newest national regulation to protect seafarers. They go through discrimination, bullying and harassment policies, what are the role and responsibility, the contractual terms, how the contractual terms apply to the seafarers. And then there is the normal negotiation between the union and the companies that set the term and condition on board the vessel, if this vessel is covered by a collective bargaining agreement. And that includes a rate of pay, that includes sickness, that includes disability, death compensation, include arbitration on contractual dispute, and the union become responsible for the agreement that they sign, and they have to respond to the seafarers. Now, you need to take into account that there is one signatory union that, I repeat, in this case is the Italian union, and on board of a ship like the Princess Diamond or any other modern ship, there can be as many as 71 different nationalities. So by signing the agreement, all these seafarers coming from different parts of the world are protected by and governed by this collective bargaining agreement. So they can refer to the signatory union or the ITF or the union in the country they're coming from when a problem arises and they need assistance.
When the seafarers were taken off the ship, were they compensated? Are they being paid?
That was a part of the negotiation that is going on with the affiliates that signed the agreement. I'm not 100% sure because the situation is fluid, but the request from the union was that the seafarers on voluntary basis would have been paid compensation, which I think is going to be in the region of 2 months of basic wages, with the assurance that there would have been a rehire the moment that they have completed their vacation at home or been fit to return on board of the ship, because some of them, they might have to go in quarantine once they reach their country, depending on the legislation or the emergency legislation that is applied in that country at this time. And the other that on voluntary basis, I repeat, decided to remain on board, which that include for sure the captain and a number of senior and nautical crew officers who have continued their employment as usual.
What is the situation now?
The situation now is that there is a number of crew that has been quarantined and clear to leave the ship to be repatriated, and there are some that are still in quarantine. There will be all the volunteers that remain on board, and we believe that the ship will need to be sanitized after it's clear by the authority, and so the on board will only remain the strict necessary crew on board.
And that's it. International labor news you can use. You can find our features and daily newscasts on our website at www.radiolabor.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Labor. I'm Marc Boulanger. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 31 degrees Fahrenheit at the mothership. Partly cloudy conditions should be prevailing mostly through the morning, and then a bit of sunshine with clouds mixed later on. Highs are nearly the same as yesterday, mid-60s. Winds will be out of the west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour in just about an hour. Overnight lows in the mid-30s. Winds will be shifting out of the west-northwest at its 5 to 10 mile per hour clip, bringing with it tomorrow cloudy skies with occasional showers for the afternoon, a high only in the mid-40s. Winds will be light and variable while that rain's falling, and we're expecting pretty darn close to something less than a quarter inch. So we'll see if we'll get that much, and everything is subject to change because, you know, it is the weather. Pollen is still rated at none. The air quality index locally is good at 22 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is moderate at 3. So do take care, still get that sunscreen on. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.16 inches. Visibility is only at 5 miles, and relative humidity is at 88%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people, positively, live around the world. London is 50 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 46 degrees with a lovely rain shower. Oh, bring the flowers with the rain showers. Still too cold, I say. Rome is 62 and sunny. Oh, the Spanish Steps this time of year. It's lovely, especially if you're avoiding the coronavirus from Milano. Kyiv is 41 and cloudy. Kabul is 46 and mostly cloudy. Hong Kong is 65 and partly cloudy. Tokyo, 47, cloudy. Sydney, Australia, 66, partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 55 degrees and mostly cloudy. And New York is a very brisk 34 degrees Fahrenheit with sunny sun. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. First amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of Reuters by Danny Kwok and Pak Yu. Hong Kong police arrested publishing tycoon Jimmy Lai, an outspoken critic of Beijing, and 2 other pro-democracy activists on charges of illegal assembly, drawing condemnation from international rights groups, and rightfully so. Lai, a self-made millionaire who has made financial contributions to Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement, he's a partisan then, has been a target of criticism from mainland Chinese media, was picked up by police at his house. Apple Daily, one of the publications under media company Next Digital, in which Lai is non-executive chairman, said he was accused of participating in an illegal march on August 31st. The newspaper said Lai had followed a crowd along a central route for 2 hours that day, singing hymns and praying. He must be an enemy of the state then. Veteran democracy activists Liu Chiquan and Young Soon were also arrested on yesterday, and they were arrested on the same charges. The 3 have been charged and will appear in court on May 5th. Police did not name those arrested as per its standard practice. They gave no further details. That way they can be disappeared, beat to crap, and then have their family members purchase the bullet that they'll be executed with. Because you can't have people clapping, singing hymns, and praying while hoping that democracy flourishes in the free world.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Colin Packham of Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Australia's deportation policy is so corrosive that it has soured its bilateral relationship with New Zealand, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said on Friday today, a rare bust-up between the 2 historic allies. Australia's conservative government has in recent months moved to deport thousands of foreigners convicted of crimes as part of an immigration crackdown that can also strip dual nationals of their Australian citizenship. The move has seen hundreds of people deported to New Zealand, a country that some left when just children and have few ties to. We have countless who have no home in New Zealand. They have no network. They have grown up in Australia. That is their home, and that is where they should stay, Ardern told reporters in Sydney during a media conference alongside Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. Do not deport your people and your problems. The 2 countries have fought in numerous conflicts alongside each other, and squabbles between the 2 rarely break out beyond playful, light-hearted banter over sport and culture. Morrison, however, was unapologetic and promised no change in Australian policy. If you have committed a crime and you are not a citizen of Australia, then you have no right to stay. The disagreement comes as Ardern faces a tight race to keep her premiership when New Zealanders return to the polls on September 19th. Ardern is usually popular among Liberal voters globally thanks to her compassionate but decisive response to a mass shooting, her focus on climate change and multilateralism, and her ability to combine motherhood and leadership. I don't know, isn't that just sort of a natural process? You would think. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week. Oh my gosh. But you do know we will meet up on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. Oh, and don't forget, there is a music show, the Justice Department Musique Sans Frontières, on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. That would be Atlantic. So tune into that. Otherwise, Do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night and all weekend for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here on Monday, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.